I always told myself, in all of my addiction, I told myself I would not use needles. I had that picture of a homeless drug addict under a bridge using a needle. I was not like that. I was above that. I had a house, I had a car, I had a job. Eventually, I started using the needle. I could not pay my rent. Eventually, I was stealing things from my parents and pawning them. I was having sex for drugs. My parents divorced when I was 2, and my mom remarried when I was 4. Kind of going back from house to house, I always felt like I didn't belong at either home. So looking back on my childhood, I always felt like there was a void inside of me that I was trying to fill. I actually didn't start using any substances until junior year of high school. My brothers had baseball games and practices, and my mom and stepdad would take them, and I would stay behind at home, and I would go into their liquor cabinet, and I would go into the shower and sit on the floor and cry. Senior year of high school, I was introduced to oxycodone. I wanted to feel nothing. I was just numbed out, but I hid everything very well. Those were my secrets, and no one could take that away from me. In college, my drug of choice was alcohol, and I drank until I blacked out. I mean, almost every night of the week. I ended up getting Baker acted twice while I was at FSU, and I got suspended. And I had my connections for my pills back home. My parents eventually caught on. The original plan for me going to my dad's house was to stay there for 2 weeks, get sober, get my life together. But in those 2 weeks, my brother was diagnosed with brain cancer. I was so self-consumed with my drug addiction. I felt like my mom and stepdad were abandoning me. I knew that I was sick with a drug addiction, and my brother was sick with cancer. In my sick mind, I felt like they were abandoning me and only cared about my brother. But that's, what drugs do to you. They make you very selfish. And I never reached out to my brother during that time. I never called him. I never visited him in the hospital. My mom, she came over to my house one day, and she had written this letter, and the only thing I can remember in this letter was her giving me an ultimatum. And she said, if you're willing to get help, I will be 100% behind you. I will support you. If you don't get help, I need you to get out of my life because I cannot handle it anymore. But to this day, I tell my mom that she saved my life. When I was in treatment, I took every suggestion. I went to every therapy session and spilled my guts. I was vulnerable and honest. I had never shared the things that I shared with my therapist before to anyone. And I kept my head down and I put my all into it. And I was also introduced to a fellowship program where I could continue building on this foundation that I made in treatment. Building these relationships in the recovery community, I learned so many coping skills in life to maintain long-term sobriety. I love waking up in the morning and being okay in my skin. I never felt that in active addiction. I'm okay with being dorky, goofy self. Like, I embrace that. I love dancing. I love reading. I love, being with girlfriends and just laughing. I love taking my son to the park, and I love my life today. I help other people get sober. I am so grateful to be a woman that can say that she has almost 7 years of sobriety, when 7 years ago I could not imagine an hour of not being sober. I'm just really grateful to have 7 years sober. I mean, that's crazy to me.